Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome. You have landed in a very special episode of what really is from our Business Accelerator group, our mastermind. And if you are interested today in learning about how to use artificial intelligence to automatically review and improve your audiobooks, whether you're an author or a publisher, then you are in the right place, because today we have Adam here from Pozotron, which is this crazy new tool, well, new to us anyway, that we recently discovered, and we wanted to share it to you. Now, what you're seeing is a special presentation of the Business Accelerator Group, our mastermind. And this is the kind of thing we do all the time, is learn about new tools and new strategies, kind of chew them up together as a group in order to make each other better. So today on our call, I've got a bunch of people here from our mastermind group in addition to our special guest. So let's just get everybody on the camera now. Let me see how I can do that. All right. And we'll have other members perhaps joining in and out as we go. By the way, if you're interested in the Business Accelerator group, just message me. I'll tell you about how to become a member of this group, which is really about a group of hybrid publishers and marketers and live casters who are all interested in making each other better. All right, everybody, hello. Good to see everyone this morning. Adam, you are our guest of honor, and I want to have this discussion with you about this great tool, Pozotron. Why don't you tell us what in the world it is?
Okay, so Pozotron was our company's been around commercially since January 2019. Development started back in late 2017 on the tool that we have, and really it was conceived as a way to help audiobook, or I should say scripted audio publishers, improve the QC of their audio files. And Everett, if you want to throw my presentation up on the screen, that would be awesome. Really the best way to describe our main tool, which is our QC improving tool, as spell check for scripted audio. So you look at it. So you upload your manuscript. That's the actual text of the book. You upload your audio files recorded from that manuscript. Pozotron uses what's called a forced alignment algorithm to compare the two and gives you an output of everything Pozotron thinks is a mistake in your narrated audio. I mean, for those, I've got two little kids. I read them books all the time, and it's amazing how often I miss a word or add a word, let alone mispronounce a word. Really, even a professional narrator will do that fairly regularly. So what our tool does allows a narrator, a publisher, even a rights holder to proof audio narrated from a script and make sure it is word perfect or as close to word perfect as you want it to be. So our audio proofing tool is designed really for two things. One, to eliminate manual tasks. And that does not mean to replace the human and proof it without a human. That is not what it's designed to do. We're very big believers in the fact that audiobooks are an art, and art requires humans. So it is not designed to replace a human proofer. It is designed to make that human proofer much faster and more efficient and more accurate. Because let's be honest, if you're doing a full listen of an audiobook, it's going to take you an hour to listen to an hour of audio. There is, unless you're listening to it on, sped up, there's almost no way to actually speed up that process. A human proofer, there's a whole bunch of things that human proofer needs to do after the actual listening. And that's writing down notes, copying out the MP3 files for all the mistakes, emailing them back and forth. It's all of that work, which can be a significant addition of time on top of just the hour of listening to an hour of audio. That Pozotron basically turns from 20 minutes or 30 minutes of work for an hour of audio down to a couple clicks of a mouse.
Now, before you go further, this is why I went nuts when I first heard about your tool. So any of us who've been involved in audiobooks understand, yes, it is reviewing an audiobook is one of the most tedious things on the planet, because to do it properly, you have to have the book out or the manuscript that they read from, whether it's on a tablet or something. You have to have that. You have to have the audio running, and then you have to have a place to keep notes for any corrections, changes, questions. Most people won't do that. Let's just be real. Most authors won't do that for their own audiobooks, even though it's their audiobook. And so at best, what they might do is stick it in the CD player in the car and listen to it in chunks while they're driving around.
Mm-hmm.
And what you just called out is so true about it's so easy to miss things because your ear just gets comfortable with the rhythm of something, and someone could say the completely wrong word, but it might not trigger. And so that's what I just love about your tool is it speeds up the process, and it's going to be more, I'll be honest with you, I think it's going to be more accurate than a lot of personal reviews that are going to be done. So this is why we're just so excited about it. So
awesome.
Keep going.
And to give a perspective of myself as an audiobook consumer, I'm currently listening to 2 audiobooks. One of them is Harry Potter with my son, my 6-year-old son. And the other one is one I'm listening to myself, which is about coaching and leadership philosophies in football. And in the football book, every time he says a football record, instead of saying they were 14-2, he says 14-2. He's mispronounced a whole bunch of player and coach names. Not that that really matters, but for me being a football fan, it really affects my enjoyment of the book, because every time the narrator says something, I think that's really frustrating. Or quite frankly, in the Harry Potter we're listening to, he pronounces Voldemort and Gryffindor wrong. And it really affects my enjoyment of the book. So that's why audio proofing and QCing your audiobook work is tremendously important.
Yeah.
If you throw my presentation back up there on the screen.
Absolutely.
So our main tool that we first built was that audio proofing tool I mentioned, and we've really shifted our focus. I've been with the company since January, and when I came on, we did a big strategic planning exercise with our CEO and our board and our developers, and we really have moved now to the front end of the audiobook process, and that's stopping what's called a pickup in audiobook terminology. That means something that's a mistake that needs to get fixed. Stopping them before you even start recording. And that's through proper preparation. So that includes researching all the words in the audiobook that the narrator doesn't know how to pronounce, whether that's just a complex word or a character name or a place name or something like that. And we have a tool that I'll demonstrate that allows you to do that easily and quickly, but also to incorporate the rights holder or the author. So for example, if you have a name, one of the names in a book we use as a demo is Lagzoor, Lagxoor. That is not in the dictionary. You can't Google it anywhere. So what our tool does is the narrator goes through and does all the pronunciation research that they can do with publicly available data. And then they send it to, if Everett's the author, say, hey, Everett, can you look at this project? Because I honestly have no idea how to say Lagzoor. Another one is a character voice guide, where it makes it much easier for the narrator to go through and prepare for how they're going to voice all these characters, and then send it to the author and say, hey, what do you think? Because, we had a recent example where I was showing the character voice guide to a narrator who was doing a multi-narrator project where he was only narrating half the chapters. And he chose a voice for one of the main characters of the book, submitted it to the author with his entire half book narration. And the author said, what are you doing? This main character's voice should not sound like that. Didn't you read on page 32? Someone says, oh, I forgot how deep Jim's voice was. So this narrator had to go back and re-record hundreds of lines of dialogue because he didn't go, make the very easy step of taking 10 minutes to go record those voices, send them to the author for a quick thumbs up or thumbs down. So all these tools are designed to speed up the process of preparation, but also make it so a narrator doesn't have to go back and fix stuff that they could have just cleared with the author beforehand. Because the way from a narrator's perspective, narrators get paid for the finished hour of audio. They don't, if they make mistakes, they don't get paid extra for fixing those mistakes. That's not how it works. So it's incumbent on a narrator to be as accurate as possible in their first submission if they want to put in as little time as possible to make that same amount of money based on finished hours of audio. We do use artificial intelligence. If any of you have been paying attention to the online discourse in the last week, that is a very, very, very sensitive and hot topic in audiobooks right now. However, there are a bunch of companies out there using AI to make AI likenesses of human voices. So that's basically having a computer narrate an audiobook. That is not what we are doing. We are using AI and machine learning to improve our algorithm to better compare voices to text. And that's to improve the accuracy of our proofing tool, the accuracy of all of our preparation tools, and the accuracy of many other tools that we're building out right now. We do not sell or share any user data with any third parties. Everything we've built, our algorithms, everything is completely 100% made by Pozotron. We don't use any we don't use any third party algorithms or anything like that. So your data is never shared with a third party. And our software is full stop, not designed to replace human proofers or editors with software. It is designed to help those human proofers and editors be more accurate, more efficient, and quite frankly, be more profitable, because the less time they put into delivering that audiobook, the more profitable they're going to be. At our heart, we are a company that cares deeply about the art of audiobooks. I listen to them every day, as do many of our teammates, our colleagues here. And we're here. Our goal is to use technology to enhance your telling of the story, whether you're an author, a publisher, an audiobook production company, or a narrator. We're here to give you a tool to help you be more efficient. Here's our contact information. I will put this back up on the screen later on, but that's kind of the elevator pitch on who we are. And unless there's any questions right off the top, I will jump into a live demo.
Let me add everybody back in for the moment. Certainly, anybody have questions before we go on to the live demo? Just from the concept standpoint. And by the way, I'm just going to say, Adam, I had no idea you had those other parts to the tool. Like the only part I knew about, and the part that was critical, was let me upload my manuscript, let me upload the audiobook, let the AI go through it and give me a punch list of things to address.
Yeah.
And we've done that, and it's been stellar, honestly. But I didn't know that you had the other tools in regards to script preparation and character voicing guide and those pieces, because those would be really, really helpful as well. I think a lot of people, when they write their book and then transition to having it done by audio, whether they are doing it or not, don't understand how many pieces of the book don't play well for audio, and how many little rewrites and tweaks have to be done in order to make it play right. So for those who are listening, it's when the reader refers to their reader, for instance, instead of to their listeners, or there's a table or there's a graphic and you're trying to refer to the graphic that just won't be there. All of those things. And so I'm grateful that you guys have created tools for that as well.
Thank you.
All right, Caroline, Bonnie, anything you guys want to throw in right now?
Well, Adam, really great summary. I actually have worked with Pozotron for a while. Yeah. And I absolutely love this product. And I have to tell you that I was working with a sound editor on a book, and he said, no, I don't use that tool. I've been doing this many, many years, and I'm really accurate. We found about 40 mistakes in the book that, because I ran it through Pozotron, and because I wasn't going to go and listen to it for the author. And I didn't narrate it, I have to tell you. But it's an amazing, amazing tool. And that the pronunciation guide is so helpful in advance. And I haven't used the character guide, but I do that by hand. So I'm really excited to try that one out. It's
awesome.
It's an amazing tool.
Yeah, our director of outreach, I don't know if you, Caroline, if you ever crossed over with Ryan Hicks, who's our director of outreach in your time with the company. But
yeah, just briefly. Yeah.
Okay. Ryan was with Dion Audio for 10 years before joining us. Dion is one of the biggest audiobook production companies in the United States. And when they first started testing Pozotron, and he was one of the two people who helped really bring it on board and part of their workflow, he said, I don't need exactly what you just said. I don't need this tool. I'm great at my job. I've been doing this for a decade. And he tested himself dozens of times against Pozotron, and every time Pozotron caught something that he missed, because it doesn't sound difficult if you've never done it, but proofing an audiobook is really, really difficult. It's finicky. It's taxing. You're doing it for hours on hours on hours. Just listening to a podcast or an audiobook while you're doing the dishes is one thing. Listening to it and reading a book at the same time and being guaranteed to be accurate is very, very difficult. So
well, and the point you made about the listener experience, I'm listening to a book right now, and she mispronounces the name of a couple of places in London, and on the page it looks correct, but it takes you out of the story. And that's what it is. It's because, there's a contract between the author, the narrator, and the listener. And my job as a narrator is to sort of disappear. And so it's as if you're just listening to it. And anything when there's a mispronunciation, it takes you out of the story, which is kind of disappointing. So really,
and the bit, to Adam's point, where he's listening to somebody talk about a sport, and clearly the narrator is highlighting the fact that they don't know anything about the sport, and they're just narrating someone else's manuscript. And so, yeah, they're no longer invisible. And Caroline, just as an aside, when I lived in London for 6 months, when I showed up there, I thought that my flat was a 91 Gloucester Place, and so fortunately the customs agent explained to me it was Gloucester, and I can see completely how listening to an audiobook that mispronounces those place names is so jarring and grating. So the other thing I was going to point out is, even when we do review these things, like if you're sitting there to review the audio and the words and stuff like that, you tend to hear or see what you expect to hear or see, and therefore our mind fills in those blanks, which is one reason, by the way, we tell our authors, read your manuscript out loud, but actually read what's on the page, because your ear will trigger, oh wait, I missed something there. But it is hard to do that, and that's why I'm grateful to have the AI as a backstop, because it has it's got no dog in the hunt, right? In regards to, it's got no ego, there's no attitude about, oops, I don't want to find a mistake. It's like, no, it's trying to find those for us. I really appreciate that.
The other point about, and I know you'll cover this, but the timing, it's hugely helpful if you leave too long a gap, and you might not catch that when you're listening, especially if you're listening faster. If you leave too long a pause, or too short a pause or something, it's really powerful. But anyway, I'll mute myself.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, Everett, when I moved down, similar situation, when I moved to San Diego from here in Vancouver for my master's, my MBA, for like probably 2 weeks, I said, oh, I'm so excited to go check out La Jolla.
Yeah.
And finally I was getting my haircut, and someone's like, you realize it's not La Jolla, right? And you sound like an idiot. And so it was La Jolla. But yeah, I wish I had Pozotron to help me with that. I would have looked like a lot less like an idiot at the time. So to start with Pozotron, what you're going to do, you're just going to upload a manuscript. And a manuscript is really, it doesn't have to be a book. It works with scripted podcasts. It works with, we have some people who do YouTube content. You could call it clickbait if you wanted, but YouTube video content. As long as there is a script, some text that you are going to narrate, it can work with anything. So we have a whole bunch of different people. We have quite a few people who are using us actually as well for online education. So if they're pre-recording a seminar or a lecture, a lot of people use Pozotron for that as well. So you upload your manuscript. Oh, I opened the wrong project. My apologies. Then you can go into this pronunciation guide. So what this does, this scans your text, your manuscript, and gives you suggestions. In this case, in The Hound of the Baskervilles, gives you 228 word suggestions that might be something you want to add to your pronunciation list. And this judges that by a custom word, a word that does not exist in the dictionary, a capitalized rare term, so a proper noun that is capitalized, that is seldom found in the dictionary, complex word, and this is based on a 150,000 word database that we've paid a couple narrators to go through line by line and say, yes, this is difficult. No, it is not. We had a couple narrators do this because that way, if one says it's difficult and one doesn't, we can then make a judgment call. But that's based on something that's multi-syllabic, unique character sounds back to back, or just something that's rare, like, for example, baronet, and then foreign words. So what you're going to do, you're going to go through your list. I'm going to add baronet. I'm going to ignore Grimpen. I'm going to add Lyon. I'm going to add Coombe. I'll ignore those two. Add Baskervilles. And I will add Lestrade, which is a character name in here. So you're going to go through your list. There's actually an easier way to do it if you want to go fast. You can click the R key for add to research or the I key for ignore. So you can get through a 230 word list in less than 5 minutes. Then what this does, it automatically searches this word in this case, the Oxford US Dictionary, but you can also use the Oxford Great UK Dictionary or an online tool called Forvo. And then it automatically searches it, gives you the phonetic pronunciation as well as the audio file.
Baronet. Leon. Coom.
In the event you want a little context, you can hover over this magnifying glass and it'll give you 5 examples of that word in the script. But here, for example, Baskervilles, not found in the dictionary. So what you're going to do, it also does, as you can see here, give you the count, the number of times it's said, as well as the first page it occurs. So then what you're going to do, you're going to go, you can one-click search this in Merriam-Webster. Nothing's found for Baskervilles. One-click search this in Forvo, which is another online tool.
Baskervilles.
Hopefully you guys can all hear the audio. Everett, please give me a thumbs up if you, or a thumbs down.
We can hear it. It's great.
You can also use onelook.com, which is a really, really interesting tool that basically searches every single pronunciation resource on the internet. In this case, I'm going to go to the Collins English Dictionary. Here we go. It gives me the phonetic pronunciation in IPA. I'm going to copy that, go back and paste that in. I'm then going to go and listen to it.
Baskerville.
Then you're going to click this microphone, go into record. Baskerville. My very, very terrible pronunciation in.
Oh, wow. You're not going to score any points with Caroline on that. I'm warning you.
No. So you can do whatever you want in it. You know, we'll go to Lestrade as well. We can go to Wikipedia. Hopefully that has the right stuff here. Here we go. You can copy and paste that. And then go Lestrade. So then, great. I made my list. What do I do with it now? There's a couple things. You can go here, share this with your author, and they can go through the list and add in anything, fill in some gaps if you haven't been able to fill everything else in. You can also put out a read-only version just by sharing this URL. That is just a read-only version, so they can go through and listen and give you any feedback just in an email or anything like that. So those are the two. That's what you do when you create your list. However, a lot of narrators, they do a lot of script prep. So they'll go highlight words. They'll go put notes in their manuscript. So what this export marked script button does, click that. This will automatically export a marked up PDF. So every single word on your pronunciation list is highlighted. Every single mention of that word is automatically highlighted. Oh, hope I didn't just break my computer. There we go. As you can see, Baskervilles. And there is a call out comment box with the actual IPA pronunciation. So what normally takes in a tool like iAnnotate or Adobe Acrobat, hours and hours of time to go through a book manuscript and highlight it with either some people do with pen and paper, takes seconds. Here.
That's incredible. What a really wonderful interface. I had no idea that you guys would bring in standard pronunciations from various resources, and then makes sense to allow us to create our own pronunciation, especially if it's a fiction author and they've created all these names that nobody else is going to have any idea how to pronounce. And they probably don't have any really great way to communicate those to their reader. So fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, my dad is a huge Lord of the Rings fan. He read us Lord of the Rings lots and lots of times, and The Hobbit, and he called him Smaug forever and ever. And recently I learned it's actually Smaug. So if we had this back,
which drives me nuts. It's still Smaug to me. I know.
I agreed, but yeah. All right, so character voice guide. I'm going to go into a different project here just because the Jungle Book is a little bit easier from a character perspective. And I'm just going to reset this project so it's back to wiped to complete clean format. So you go into the character voice guide. What this does, very similar to the pronunciation guide, this scans your manuscript for character names. And it's not perfect. So for example, you will get the occasional place name in there because the way our algorithm parses those things, there can be some crossover. But I'm going to add Shere Khan. I'm going to add, if you want to add in the pronunciation list and the character voice guide, you can add any word you'd like. So I'm going to add Mowgli here, and I'm going to add Baloo. So once you've done that, you go in here, you can enter the character's name phonetics or look it up. In this case, same thing in onelook.com. So nothing found there, but I can type. You can go in, same thing. You can go and record your own
Audio, Shere Khan.
Then what you're going to do here, you can enter in a character description. So for Mowgli, you could write young feral boy raised by wolves. Defiant, never wants to leave the jungle for the man village. We do have a little bug here. We need to fix the text wrapping, but enter the character voice notes. Young boy's voice with slight English accent, defiant, angry tone. Then you could actually go in, and I'm just going to fix this so it looks a little better. Then you can also go in and record yourself. I'm not even going to try because I'm not an actor, but this is Mowgli's voice sample.
It's very convincing.
Thank you. You scared me away with my pronunciation of boss.
No, come on.
And so once you've done this, then again, you're going to either share this project using this blue share button with the author or rights holder or whoever. Maybe it's another narrator you just want feedback from, or you can just do this read-only URL version and they can go through and listen to everything.
That's terrific. So the read-only URL version of these documents is really intended for people who they don't have access to Pozotron. You don't want to give them your username and password. You don't want to share credentials, that kind of thing, right?
So you never need to share. Using that share button, you do not need to share username and password. That just sends them a link saying, Everett, Adam has shared the Jungle Book with you. They click on that link. They do have to create an account in Pozotron if they don't have one. There's no charge to that. But that's just to enable them to accept our terms of service. Just like if any software you use, you do need to accept the terms of service. There's absolutely no charge. If I shared this with Bonnie, she wouldn't have to pay anything. The only charge is for me as the book owner for uploading audio to that file, that project.
Fantastic. What a great business model, by the way, to do that, to invite collaboration at, without increasing the expense. Basically, it makes a better product all around.
Exactly. And thank you for that feedback. I will show you one thing, just give a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. Give me a second. The next step of this character voice guide that we're working on right now, because right now it's a fantastic tool for recording what you want to say, but it doesn't really help you save time in actually parsing the book like the pronunciation guide does, because you still have to go read the book for cues about how Mowgli should be voiced. I will show you, however, what the next step. So right now we are building a new algorithm that will take every single mention of that word, so in this case Sherlock, and score it based on two factors. One, the likelihood that that sentence includes a cue about how Sherlock spoke. So for example, Sherlock said aggressively would be scored higher than Sherlock said, which would be scored higher than Sherlock was mad, because that's not talking about how he spoke. And so the goal here is it shows you 20 examples of that character speaking, gives you the most specific examples to give you cues about how you should voice that character. The other one would be descriptions. So Sherlock was tall, Sherlock was obstinate, would be highly ranked, because that gives you cues about that character's personality and how the actor, because narrators are actors, should perform that character. And then finally, you click on all mentions, and that will show you all 581 mentions of Sherlock in every sentence that he has mentioned. Because even that, while sure, that's reading 581 sentences, is a hell of a lot faster than reading an entire book with a highlighter in your hand.
Wow.
So
this just keeps getting better and better.
We're doing our best.
I'm going to say, I started to get a little bit of chills when I realized if you're someone who voices audiobooks on a regular basis, just the front end of this tool, without even the AI review of the audio, just the front end of this tool would save gads of time.
Yep.
So fantastic.
Really, our mission is you don't change what the people are doing involved in the audiobook. You're not replacing them in the process, but you're making their job of doing that same work much faster because they're doing it in a different way. And finally,
music interlude. Whose audio that's coming from. There we go.
And then the last step is you can actually, once you're done that, you can add in a character photo. Because some people say, I had one narrator recently say, all I wanted to think about when I was voicing character X was Matthew McConaughey. I wanted his tone. I wanted his way of speaking. So all I did was I put a picture of Matthew McConaughey up in my booth. So that gives you an idea there where you can, put in pictures to really, if you're more of a visual person, you can work that way. We are also building a couple other tools instead of that script export. One of the next big projects we're working on is a Teleprompter. So instead of porting all your prep work into a PDF, you're exporting it into a Teleprompter. Research shows that narrators or anyone speaking using a teleprompter, it does increase your accuracy. But then also, instead of just having a call out box, a little comment box in your PDF saying how to pronounce O'Keefe, for example, you could actually have a little play button and listen to yourself speaking the word O'Keefe and then narrate that way. Okay, so once you've actually done your recording, you're then going to go in. Sorry, I opened the wrong Hound of the Baskervilles project. And you're going to go into proofing. So I've just got one chapter in here. So a couple of things about our algorithm. If you didn't start at chapter 1 and you uploaded chapter 20, it would automatically match that audio with chapter 20 in the text. So it's not like you have to start with chapter 1 and go that way. Our algorithm basically converts takes your text, converts your audio to text and compares the two and then matches that exactly. So regardless of what section of audio you put in, it will automatically match that. So then what you're going to do, you're just going to click play and you're going to see that it will automatically highlight every word as it is being narrated.
Chapter 1. Mr. Sherlock Holmes. Mr. Sherlock Holmes, who was usually very late in the mornings, save upon those not infrequent occasions when he was up all night, was seated at the breakfast table.
So pretty clear, very easy to listen and read at the same time. I should start by saying Pozotron currently catches 4 types of mistakes: an added word, a missed word, a mispronounced word, and an extra long pause. We are currently working on synthetic noise detection, so things like mouse clicks, microphone distortions, something called a plosive, which if you don't know what a plosive is, it is when you're saying a P word and you have a lot of really like an air puff sound that hits the microphone. And then the next step after that is going to be natural noise detection. So a lot of narrators narrate from their house. Caroline, I can see that you're narrating in a booth, I'm assuming in your house. I've got 2 little kids who are often upstairs running around. Noises happen. So it'll also flag synthetic and natural noises by middle of next year. So when you're going through here, Pozotron marks what's called an annotation. And an annotation means, hey, proofer, we think this might be something that is a pickup. We think. It's not, this is definitely a pickup. It's, hey, you're human with your human discretion, need to take a look at this. So anywhere you click, you can see we're at 14 seconds. Anywhere you click on the text, it automatically jumps to that point in the audio. So we just jumped to 131. But here I'm going to jump down to this first pickup.
The thick iron ferrule is worn down, so it is evident that he has done a great amount of walking with it.
So in this case, Pozotron thinks that the narrator says evidence. This is what's called a false annotation. This is where Pozotron is 99.999% accurate, but to be that accurate, occasionally we need to be a little bit too careful. So that is the occasional false annotation. The more heavily accented or rapidly the narrator speaks, the more false annotations you get. But we do, when you create your own project, if you say you're someone speaking in like a thick Scottish brogue, as many of my family members in Glasgow do, you can set our algorithm to be relaxed, normal, or extra sensitive. And relaxed means, yes, it'll be a little less accurate, but it'll give you a lot less false annotations, just because you're setting the accuracy of the algorithm. So we're going to click OK here because we listened to that. That is not a typo. He did not say evidence. He said evident. Next one we're going to jump down to. I will start at the full sentence.
Obviously, at the moment when Dr. Mortimer withdrew from the service of the hospital in order to start a practice for himself.
Very clear. Instead of saying in order to start in practice, he said in order to start a practice. I'm going to mark that as a pickup. Apologies for my phone going off. I just found out my son's soccer practice is canceled, so I do not have to stand in the rain after work today. I'm going to jump down to the next one here.
I laughed incredulously as Sherlock Holmes leaned back into his settee and blew little wave.
So you can see there, instead of saying lean back in his settee, he says into his settee. I'm going to mark that as a pickup. That is a mistake.
Medical shelf, I took down the medical dictionary and turned up the name.
Again, wrong word. Going to mark that as a pickup. The reason that, we should go back a little bit, the reason that two reasons, but the main reason that we ask you to decide pickup or okays, because not every book needs absolute word perfection. If I said in some books, if I said leaned back into his settee instead of leaned back in, that doesn't matter. That doesn't actually affect the meaning of the sentence. But some authors, some rights holders say, no, it has to be the exact words that I wrote. So it really depends. Here's one more. This case, you're going to hear the way he goes from antennae of an. It thinks, Pozotron thinks he says av instead of a. Or
and restless as the antennae of an insect.
So he kind of skips through that. It's not perfect diction, but we're going to mark that as okay. I don't think that requires a fix. And then the last one.
Appeals strongly, then had you better not consult him.
Mark that as a pickup. Then the last thing, at the start of every chapter, what you're going to do, a start and end of every chapter, you're going to listen to the end of the audio to make sure that the end of that chapter, so you can see this grayed out text that says chapter 2, that's the start of the next chapter, to make sure that no text is missed.
Plainly what the exact nature of the problem is in which you demand my assistance.
So yeah, that worked. There's no audio missing. The reason we have that, there is almost only one way for an audiobook production company to get summarily fired from a project. That is missing a large section of text in a book. That is almost the only way that you can basically get, not blackballed, but get in real trouble with your client, is if you miss a large section of text. So that's why we have that in there, to make sure we are also building another feature as well, where when you finished your book and you say, yeah, I'm done this project, it'll say, well, there was 10,000 words in your manuscript and there's only 7,500 words in your audio. You probably missed something. So we are building that feature as well. Just all these extra backstops and checks to make sure that nothing catastrophically bad happens. So once you're done your proofing, there's two things you do. You go in here and you export what's called a pickup packet. You can set your timestamps, and that's what Carolyn was talking about, where you're setting, you can say this depends on how your editor is working with a chapter by chapter files or the entire book. Then you can also set your narration context when it shows the mistake, just several words, the current sentence or prior sentences. And click export, and this is what it looks like. This shows you the mistake. This is the audio of the mistake.
Obviously at the moment when Dr. Mortimer withdrew from the...
So once you've got this, you send this to your narrator. They know exactly what they need to narrate to fix it. But then you also send something called DAW markers. So DAW is Digital Audio Workstation. That is basically an audio program that editors use to edit their audio. What you do, you're going to export this. I'm going to use Audacity here because I can show a quick example here. So when you're using Audacity, open this. So I'm going to open the same audio file here in Audacity. And I'm using Audacity because A, it's a free program, and B, I'm not an audio engineer, so I am not, any of the more complicated ones is not for me. So this is what it would look like, right? It's kind of intimidating. You'd have to then, previously, what you'd have to do is say, oh, there's a mistake at 2 minutes and 20 seconds, find that timestamp and cut it out. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go File, Import, Labels. Then I'm going to go into, sorry.
No, that's the downside with Audacity. It doesn't use the standard Windows or current Windows navigation.
Exactly.
So I hate that.
Yeah. So then what this does, this brings in your markers showing where your editor needs to edit everything out. So they can click on there and click play.
Well, Watson, what do you make of it?
This is actually from a different proofing project, so they're not going to match what we just proofed. But this shows you. And then what the editor is going to do is just going to go here, snip down. If they need to cut that part out, just click delete. And then they can just add the new pickup right in. So instead of what normally has to happen, which is they have to search and find based on the timestamp where those mistakes are, they just click on the marker and it shows exactly where things need to be edited.
Caroline, do you use that feature?
Yes, all the time. That's brilliant because the way it worked in the part. Well, actually, I started the back because, but if the markers stay in place, and this is something, Adam, you can probably tell me about afterwards. I'm getting a little technical, but I usually start at the end of the file because otherwise the time changes. But it's so helpful because you spend hours trying to find pickups. And what's easy is you can go and listen to this. I record the pickup at the end of the file, and then I just come and paste it in here. I record in mono because that's typically what audiobook narrators do. So, it's typically mono, but and I don't know, it might be worth asking people on that, but it's hugely helpful. This tool makes a huge difference.
And so what Carolyn was just saying was that the correct way to do it, exactly as she said, is you start at the last one and move backwards. Because if I then, it right here is at 11:55, but if I cut this part of the audio out, this marker doesn't actually move. So that's the problem. So if you work backwards, or if you're working forwards, which, is what it is, you're just going to make sure you also delete that part, and then everything moves with it. So both ways work. The audio editing correct way to do it is back to front, though.
Incredible. Yet another tool I had no idea was in your bag of tricks.
Exactly. So I'm going to show you one more tool before I just throw it out to any other questions. And this is called Scan Occurrences. And this is for a very specific problem. Recently, we had an audio editor come to us in a panic saying, I'm proofing. It was a 3-book series. Each book was about 500 pages long, where all the characters were Greek gods. So, complex non-Anglophone words or names. And one of the kind of middling characters, I think it was mentioned 30 times, was mispronounced 30 times in the book. So this author or this editor was going to have to go through 1,500 pages of text and narrated audio and find those 30 mentions. So instead, what you do, you go into Scan Occurrences. This adds any words that are in your text. So in this case, I'm just going to add, in your, this automatically adds any words in your pronunciation guide, but you can also add any other word. And then it scans your audio file for every mention of that word. And I'm going to click scan, and this will play every mention of the word Watson to listen to for consistency.
Watson? Hey, Watson. Watson. My dear Watson.
So I need to get a better example of this, but let's say, for example, he said Watson one time. What you're going to do, he pronounced it. There's 10 times. He said Watson 9 times and Watson 1 time. What you're going to do, you're just going to click here. And if it's something that Pozotron didn't catch for whatever reason, because take the Anna example. If you say Anna or Anna based on A-N-N-A, both of those are phonetically correct. So Pozotron won't mark either of those as mistakes, and also won't listen to it for consistency because the AI is just not able to do that. So what you're going to do is you're just going to go here, click annotate, and this will create narrator said, how would I pronounce Watson? I don't even know. Anyways, so you're going to click annotate, and that will just create, see it annotated 1 of 10. I then go back into the audio, into the proofing file. And then there's going to be a new pickup marker that I have to listen to saying narrator said Watson. I'm going to listen to it and then mark that as a pickup. So for this very specific use case, when another example recently had a narrator who had the word shaman, S-H-A-M-A-N, in a book, he said shaman 9 times and shaman 1 time. So he used Scan Occurrences to find that one example, and he realized that after he'd proofed the entire book, he used Scan Occurrences to go in and solve this one problem in 10 or 15 seconds rather than having to go listen to an 8-hour book again.
My goodness. I'm maybe I shouldn't apologize for how blown away I am. I'm just looking at it from a different perspective. So I'm looking at this from a publisher's perspective and from a publisher of audiobooks. Caroline has this unique perspective of looking at it from someone who does voiceovers and editing, and also participates in publishing. And others will be looking at this from the standpoint of they themselves being the author or something like that. And I'm blown away by how complete the suite is. What's missing? I mean, I'm sure you've got some things on your punch list to do in the future, but
I actually did realize I forgot to show one quick small feature. So if there's something that Pozotron doesn't catch currently, like a dog barking in the background, for example, highlight that section of the text, click the speech bubble, type in a tag for noise. You can actually tag editing so the editor knows about it. And you can type in
note to the editor.
Note to the editor, you're going to click save. So that's marked as a pickup. Now I'm going to go back and re-edit a packet. And what you're going to see now, the editor can just click this tag and it sees only the ones that editor was tagged in. And then you can see dog barks in background. It was a noise and tagged editing, and then they can listen to that. You can also tag individual narrators. If you've got a multi-narrator project, you can tag narrator 1 and 2. So narrator 1 knows, hey, these are all the pickups I need to focus on. Narrator 2, all the pickups you need to focus on. And then finally, you can also tag things as a typo, and that goes into a specialized typo report that you can then send to the author or the rights holder saying, hey, it's not actually my job as your audiobook narrator or proofer to fix typos, but FYI, here's 5 typos in the book you should probably fix.
Really, really good. Caroline, you've been using this for a while. Do you use it? Do you use all of these pieces, or 1 or 2 of them? What do you use?
Not yet, but I have to tell you that the character guide I'm going to do right now, and the name find. I've had that in several books where they're using unusual names. I just read one where it was set in France, and actually it was my name, but they pronounced it Caroline. And most of the time I did Caroline, and then, out of force of habit, I did Caroline a couple of times. And I have a final proofer who goes through, and basically what she does, I use my proofer completely differently now. She used to go through and do all this manually, but now what I have her do is I want her to listen. I don't want her reading the manuscript. I want her just listening for direction. Hey, you didn't sound like an American when you were reading that voice, or this is kind of slow, or you really didn't sound sad in that bit. So some narrators don't want that. I like that feedback because I think it just makes you a better narrator. It's unbelievable what you guys have done in the last year, because I was working with Pozotron a bit 12 months ago, and it's amazing to me what you guys have added. It's fantastic, and that name thing is such a great feature.
Thank you. Really what our goal is to have a feature for every type of role and every step of the audiobook process. So if you're an author, there's going to be some stuff you can use Pozotron for. If you're a narrator, there's more you can use Pozotron for. If you're an editor, whatever, there'll be something to help you with your process in audio. And you spoke exactly to what kind of our value proposition is your proofer doesn't need to focus on whether someone said in or into. Your proofer then needs to focus on things like making sure all the characters' accents are consistent, and making sure that all of those performative and creative elements that AI will never be able to fully understand is what your human listeners paying attention to, rather than just word perfection, because that's something an AI can do and do it better actually than a human can. However, you combine the human and the AI, and that's kind of an unbeatable combination. So,
I spoke with Claudia, I can't remember her last name, but she was one of the founders of Recorded Books. And I said to her, how do you judge a great narrator? And she said, very simple. How quickly do they disappear? How quickly, when I'm listening to the book, how quickly am I no longer aware of them? And that's difficult to do. It's, especially when you are trying to do accents. And so to know that accuracy is covered, we're good. We don't need to, it is like spell checker. I actually think I made that phrase, spell checker for audiobooks. But it's an amazing tool, and it just makes you a better narrator. It makes the editors better editors. And the one tool that I haven't been using is that, to mark off where there's a background noise or something. And I, like most narrators, hate mouth noise. I hate to hear it, and I shouldn't mention it to you all because you won't listen. You won't hear it until people say, "Why did you tell me about mouth noise?" Now I hear it all the time because you're in somebody's ears, and so if you're making like a plosive or a snapping sound or anything else, it's really annoying, and it's great that you're able to mark that for your editor and say, hey, this sounds a little weird. And you take that pop out or whatever.
And to think that their AI at some point will hopefully be finding those for you too. Finding those extraneous noises, really rather incredible. Adam, do you have in the website different workflows for different people. So for instance, an author reading their own versus an editor versus a professional voiceover artist.
We don't. We're actually just about to launch a completely redone website sometime in the next 2 to 15 days. I'm not going to put an exact date.
Oh, that's so specific.
And my developer is going to get mad at me. But that is one thing we're going to build out. But what we do is, I'll give you a little bit of background. When we first launched, as any software company, it was just a bunch of software engineers for the most part. So things like customer success and onboarding wasn't something that was really the company's strength, because that's not the strength of software developers. So there was some feedback from narrators. Hey, publishing company X didn't use Pozotron properly, so I got a list of 200 pickups when it actually should have been 20. So what we do in response to that is we spend a huge amount of time on free training. Any customer that comes on, whether you're going to pay us $5 a month or $5,000. Whoa, sorry, that's a very big beetle that's crawling across the top of my computer. It just freaked me out.
Was it John, Paul, Ringo? Which?
Interesting. I'll get that later. We'll do unlimited free training for that person, because we want to make sure, A, as a paying customer, they get the most value out of our tool by using it properly, and B, no narrator is affected by someone not using Pozotron correctly. Because unfortunately, it's kind of like you get hit by a car and you sue Ford instead of the driver. That has happened in the past. And so it's incumbent on us to, A, train our customers properly, because it's best for our business and it's best for the audiobook community as a whole. And what is best for the audiobook community as a whole is best for our business. So we really focus on making sure that someone comes to us and said, this is the DAW I use, this is how many people are involved in my workflow. And we say, great, let's get in our 2-hour call and actually plan out what your workflow is going to be, so we can help you incorporate Pozotron in the best way possible.
I asked for very selfish reasons, because I'll be voicing one of my own audiobooks probably tomorrow.
Yep.
We're starting to. So that's why I ask. It's different workflows. But the great thing is you have it built where it's useful by all three, right? Exactly. Voiceover, whoever's doing the voiceover, the author, the engineer, that type of thing. So I really, really, really appreciate that. Bonnie, how do you look at this now? Your role is a little bit different in the publishing world, and I know that you're geeking out on this like the rest of us. But kind of what are your thoughts or questions?
Well, Adam, I'm a developmental editor.
Okay.
And so I'm on the hard copy book end of the business. However, I have a new client who is very well known in the podcasting world, and we're going to be working on mapping out her body of work. Voice, it's really about thought leadership through voice. So I thought I would attend this because, first of all, I thought it sounded really interesting, but also I just wanted to get a little bit smarter about what's possible. And I had no idea this technology existed. Everett, I'm so pleased that you invited us to this, and thank you.
You can thank Caroline for the introduction, but I'm glad you're here.
Oh, thank you, Carolyn. Perfect. So I'm fascinated. It's really more contextual information for me, but I want to be smarter, and I think you have a fabulous product. So
thank you. Well, Bonnie, Everett asked earlier about our roadmap. One of the things we're going to focus on next year, when we're very close to finishing off our roadmap from an audiobook perspective, is turning our eyes to development for podcasts and non-scripted audio. So in that, I've actually had a number of conversations with podcast companies, just informal kind of informational interviews. And really what the next goal is, right now, currently everything in Pozotron is anchored to that script. So if you don't have a script, it doesn't do anything. So what we're going to be doing is working on changing our tool a bit to have many of the features we have available for unscripted audio as well.
Incredible. So it'd be a way to do post-production, to speed post-production of preparing podcasts.
Exactly. So you're editing it for content, you're editing it for fillers like ums and ahs, or hey, your podcast guest gets back to you and says, "Oh, I really wish I didn't say that. Can you cut out this part because that's just gonna really make people upset." Anything like that.
Right.
There seems to be. I've just worked recently with an author who took her podcast series. It was a series of interviews, and she turned it into a book. And then, of course, she said, "Well, we need to provide this in audio format because that's how everybody met me." And so this connection, and I mean, Malcolm Gladwell is breaking that, that barrier. It's so much between podcast and audiobook. And I think it's a really, really interesting field. And one of the things you touched on, Everett, was the idea of writing for audiobooks. And I think having the intention that fiction writers too, I mean, they've got to think about what it's going to sound like narrated. And it's interesting because I've spoken with a couple of narrators who you have to have an exact match with the book and for what's it called on Kindle?
Whispersync.
Whispersync, right. And it's got to be so close. You can't, and Pozotron probably makes a huge difference in that arena.
That's an interesting question. When we talk with our authors about audiobooks, we try to explain to them that the audiobook, we don't necessarily strive to make it an exact match because of those things that change, like referring to listeners instead of readers, or not being able to make a reference to table 3, or trusting that a diagram that you've included on the page is going to communicate to the audio listener, because it's obviously not there. So we talk about the audiobook being the best representation, the best audio representation of the written book, rather than a mirror. Can you speak to that, Adam, and also speak to that as it refers to Whispersync?
I can't speak to it about Whispersync because I don't fully understand it, to be totally honest, and I'm not well versed in it. I will say, from an author perspective, one of the things that Ryan, our director of outreach, is really working on is engaging with authors right now to understand what the problems are in terms of that traditional print book to audio format. And one of the things that we'd kind of work on next year is a tool that would help authors. Say, I'm spitballing here, but you put your print book in, and it says, hey, these 15 pages have things that could be problematic for audio: a graph, a picture, a mention of readers, or anything like that, right? And say, these are the things you should pay attention to. Maybe here's some examples from other authors and how they've actually converted that. So that could include a table, and then giving guidance on how to write the script for the narrator to narrate that table, or a picture or something like that. One of the things we do, we have a couple partnerships with customers, for example, Learning Ally, which is a not-for-profit that we work with, who narrates audio that does audiobooks and other hybrid audio print content for kids who struggle to read, whether they're dyslexic or anything else. And those are heavily picture books, so some of them actually have described audio. So it's not just the book, it's also descriptions of the picture on every page. So it's really different. Where we'd be looking at different ways to help turn print content into really high quality audio content that gets the essence of the book across, and not just the words on the page.
Okay. And Caroline, can you speak to the Whispersync, or what you understand of it?
From the way I understand it works is you're listening on the audio, and then you want to pick up your Kindle or your phone and it syncs exactly where you are seamlessly. But the AI is not there to have any variance, and I don't know if they gave it a little bit more flexibility, that it jumps you to chapter 2. It doesn't have to be chapter 2 this word. I don't know if that would help, but I don't know that piece of it. What you were talking about, Adam, with Learning Ally, that's actually where I started with narrating audiobooks, which I think a lot of narrators started there. And I started with university textbooks. And I was narrating, one on engineering, and I had to describe exactly. Now, from an author's standpoint, though, it's a problem, but it's also a huge opportunity. And a lot of the authors that I work with, we create PDFs of all of the diagrams, and it's a downloadable PDF, and it's a lead generator, obviously. It's a way of getting people on your email list that you wouldn't necessarily. So it's an opportunity as well as a challenge,
Yeah, the Whispersync network, Whispersync works great. And what's one thing we've noticed is yes, the Kindle gets tied to the files that get uploaded into Audible, so that you can switch back and forth between them. We have not explored the level of tolerance between the variations in the audio versus the written. And we have a book right now that we're publishing, and actually we put it in. We're just waiting for the audio to be syndicated across the various channels, and it's significantly different. And that's because the written book relied heavily upon some diagrams and made references to those diagrams frequently.
My understanding of it is that if there's like 3% off,
they'll just turn off that.
It's not a sort of tolerance thing. It's their algorithm, whatever, that they decide, and if it doesn't match, they just throw it out.
And that's going to have to improve over time. And whether that's AI that's assisting in that process or what, but that'll have to improve, because how many audiobooks do we have now where the author takes a bit of an aside? Right.
And that's the beauty of it too. That's the beauty of having that audiobook, is to be able to say, okay, I wrote it like this.
That's right. And some of those asides may be the most valuable or insightful or entertaining parts of that audio, especially where it's the author, the author voicing it. So, all right. I put in the chat log for anyone who's interested in picking up Pozotron. The website is positron.com, but I did put in all transparency an affiliate link into the chat log. That will not take you to a sales page at this point. It just takes you to a sign up form, and you won't know what you're signing up for or anything. So let me just tell you that you're signing up for free access to the basic features of Pozotron, and then you'll have the opportunity to pay for to upgrade to paid services within the platform, right, Adam?
So what you get is 7 hours of free audio.
Even better.
You can go proof your first book for free. Also, shoot us an email at hello@positron.com if you want a demo or book a meeting with us. Also, there is a book a demo link on our website. If you just go to positron.com and click book a demo, it'll give you access to our calendars, and you can book something in either my or Ryan Hicks, our director of outreach's calendars. We're out here to have as many conversations as we can. So
let me put that in put that into the comments so people will get that as well. So if you use the link I shared with you, then you'll get 7 free hours. I think I'll get some free hours too. I think that's the deal, which is totally fine with me. But just really appreciate Adam. I'm grateful for I recognize that you did not invent this. You are improving it. Fortunately, on my last call with you, I did get to meet the inventor, so that was cool too.
Our CEO, Jake Posnitsky.
Yep. But I also appreciate the fact that you're coming in and saying, okay, great. We have something that's been created by engineers. Now let's continue to flesh it out for the non-engineers of the world, and really appreciate that greatly.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
All right, fantastic. So again, everybody, this is what we're doing here is something that we do in the Business Accelerator group. Is we learn new tools and strategies, and we talk them over as a group. Typically in our mastermind calls, we'll have 12 or 15 people on a call sharing strategies, helping each other avoid pitfalls and get through obstacles. In this case, we've just invited a few of our members here to participate in the interview to make it more valuable for everyone. If you're interested, reach out to me directly. All right, Adam, thank you. Caroline, Bonnie, thank you as well. I'm blown away. I cannot wait to play. I just can't wait to play.
Awesome.
Thanks
Thank
so
you very
much.
much.
Thanks, Adam. Really
Thank
appreciate it.
you.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.